Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Margaret. You're on Booktube. I have a channel that is about historical fiction writing and eclectic reading. So if that is your jam or you're curious, hopefully someone's going to have to turn down the volume because I can hear it through the door. Oh, so funny. Okay. Mom. Okay. All right. So she can probably hear me through the door too. So today is a Wednesday, which means we have a Wednesday wrap up. And as you saw in the thumbnail, I only have 2 books, so we get to go a little bit in detail today. I am finally getting to talk about this history book, For the People's Cause, about and by John Murdoch. And then I will talk a little bit about the Silver Studio of Design. So, a design and source book for home decoration by Mark Turner and Leslie Hoskins. So, they're both hardcover. I both got used copies of these, this one in a bookstore and this one in the mail. And yeah, we're going to be talking history today. So, welcome. And this is my question of the day, just to get people's unvarnished opinions. Why read a history book? I realize this is not a popular niche on Booktube, so figure I'd ask why people are not coming in droves to learn history. I can't imagine. All right. So with that assignment for you to report back, I will say hello to the chat and then mention my current reads in case anyone is interested. And then we'll dive into the wrap up. So Elaine is here. Hello, Cobalt Dragon. Catpaw is here. Internet patchy, however. I hope it's not because of any inclement weather. And I confessed my first and second breakfasts, and they were both delightful. So I apologize for nothing. Let's see. Yeah, it was leftovers from Mexican food last night, which was really good. Easy meals the next day. Exactly. And because portions in America are always too large, that's the way to go. Throw it together in an omelet and you're good to go. Another good strategy. What? I am on Booktube? Yeah, I know. It used to be like my tagline, but I just sort of stopped saying it. I'm going to say it again. Why not? Look at all those tabs. Oh, yeah. That's a thing I do. I don't know. Will that drive Noah crazy? Noah doesn't watch, so hopefully it won't drive him crazy. Jim's books reading and stuff is here. Hello, hello. Oh, Elaine says, I read ancient history. Does that count? I think it does. And Catpaw says, I love history. Yeah, so give me a good reason. Why read a history book? How do you convince people that it's important? Jim's got a good answer from Bob Marley. If you know your history, then you would know where you're coming from. I like that. That's good. And Jim says, I'm reading a historical novel and finding anachronisms. Oh boy. So that means you're finding something that wouldn't exist or wouldn't be said in the time period. So they weren't adhering to strict historical accuracy. I hope it doesn't upset the narrative or your enjoyment of the book. And Elaine says, Noah would be good. Not markers, highlighters, or pens writing in a book. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. I'm keeping the stationers happy. I'm keeping the stationery shops afloat, actually. All right. So current reads. I had this open on my phone just to let people know I've been bouncing all over the place. But I did start Rituals for Climate Change, a Crip Struggle for Eco-Justice. And what I didn't know is that it's not like rituals like you would find in a spirituality or a self-help book. It's actually poetry that's just about eco-justice and disability. So really cool. This is by Naomi Ortiz, and it's in the last few years, so pretty recent. And if you could request that from your library, it would be a great addition. Some of them are really interesting. So good queries. I am also plugging my way through Daniel O'Connell's biography essay by Raymond Moley, Nationalism Without Violence. And what's interesting is that, I mean, I'm not getting confused per se, but John Murdoch and Daniel O'Connell did cross paths. And so hearing them referenced in each other's books is pretty cool. So there's that. And then I'm working on Dreaming the Eagle by Amanda Scott, which Cat Paw advised me you need to sort of take time to absorb. So I'm trying to make that my priority because I've got 4 of those to get through in 3 months. I'm enjoying it. And I'm about a third of the way through, I think, the first one. So that's for Herkiad, and I want to get through those. And then finally, I've got Maggot, poems by Paul Muldoon, which Phillip was inspiring me to read, and I'm going to keep reading even though Celtophile Readathon is over, but I'm not really connecting with it. It's probably Philip's delivery that had me so inspired. So Philip is a poet, reads to write, I think, the channel, in case you're curious, because he's a great reader. So that's what I'm working on for the various readathons and research things. And we're going to dive into the history book first. So I've got 5 excerpts that I wanted to highlight. And yeah, so Cat Paw says their reason is those who don't know their history are bound to repeat it. True, but who said it? Can't remember. Yeah, I don't remember that one either. Jim says the book is set in 1408 Greenland. Oh, okay. That's really hard to find out about. They're talking that the rich Jarl has an extensive library. Before Gutenberg, very unlikely. I see. Yeah, that is a bit of a shortcut, sounds like. Elaine says, I keep the marker, highlighter, pen, and pencil people happy and employed. My books have lots of extra color courtesy of me. Excellent. See, book murder tools. Jim says, also, Market Trader has some dusty spectacles. Yeah, they did emerge in the late 12th century Italy. I don't think they'd be a thing in 15th century Greenland. Yeah, I wonder why Greenland's a location setting. Very interesting. Elaine says history is important because if you don't know where you came from, how do you know where you are going? Yeah. Good motivations. I like it. So thank you for contributing those. Let's see. Okay, so I've got some notes here. So John Murdoch is the subject of this biographical essay-ish, book-ish thing. And in case you don't know who John Murdoch is, since I didn't until I did some deep research, he is a Scot in the 19th century who was born in Perth, grew up in Islay and Hebrides, where my books are often set, and became an excise man, which means you're checking people are paying their taxes by going to their businesses one by one and seeing that their tools are, metered, tared correctly. And, the tickets that they pay at the toll is being returned to the inn, and like lots of little things because there was no, communication channel. So he got posted to many different places and did this all over both Ireland and Scotland and England. So he started out on Islay with very firm ideas about land and obligations and responsibilities. And he was a very staunch religious man, so Protestant. And yet, later on in life, that did not stop him from seeing how things were in Ireland when he was posted there for the excise and realizing that the Irish, for all that the people on England and Scotland's shores thought them debased and unworthy and ignorant, were under the same yoke as the Scottish Highlanders. They were experiencing the same depopulation, forced migration, insecure land tenure that the Highlanders had been in different places. And so he worked for the second half of his career, basically when he retired from the excise because he couldn't walk around in all weather in his kilt. He set up a newspaper and went around to like talk to people and help organize and then write articles for the cause of land reform. And I was really looking for someone like this for researching my books because I wanted a link of a person who recognized that the Scots and the Irish had the same issues rather than saying, well, their religions are at war, so they couldn't possibly have anything in common, any common cause to, unite for. And it's so obvious now, right? But like very few people did that. So John Murdoch did that. Michael Davitt did that. A few other people in the Chartist movement did that. And so it was very interesting to read about his life experiences through the introduction and then through various pieces of his life he had written about or through his newspaper articles. So the first description is where he grew up. And I just thought it was a beautiful description of the land on Isla. It's around not where he lived in the house, but near the schoolhouse that he went to, sort of across a little stream. He says the spot was choice in many respects. It was retired and yet not far from people. There was a wood just in front, but the wood being on lower ground, there was a considerable extent of country to be seen over and between the trees. From here I went to school to the red houses, all the way through the wood and along private paths, hung in the season with woodbine and fragrant also with meadowsweet, thyme, and bog myrtle. That's my favorite. Wild raspberries were to be found, and black brambleberries were abundant. Here also could be found sticks with natural crooks, which could be finished off into clubs for the game of shinty. So it's sounding like, this really idyllic childhood where you walk through the woods and, you find berries, and it just sounded really neat. And I thought, he knows all these plants. He has several passages here where he describes where he lived, and he knows all the plants that would be around the house, which I found remarkable and characteristic of the time and not our time, which I liked. Let's see, page 100. The next one is about the discrimination. So he's talking about how when you're trying to get your industrial machine going and you need people to power the industrial machine, what do? You squeeze the middle classes and the lower classes and don't give them any other options. So you kick them off the land, you make them, subsistence farmers that can't pay the rent. And then they have to go to the cities, and then they have to work in your factories. And so what he's saying is that they were valued as labor, and the reasons for that meant that there was the other side of that character, right? So if they have this hardworking, sober character as Scottish folks, that also meant that they were loyal and stood up for their values, but that's not what the industrial overlords wanted. So anyway, let's see. Quote is here, starts on the page before. As the Times has so forcibly told the Scottish people in its recent article on the Wallace testimonial movement and on many other occasions, they have their reward. The highest offices, civil, commercial, and industrial, are open to them, even in England, if they can show that in them they will serve the same grand purpose of their existence, that of serving their Anglo-Norman superiors. When thus exercised, the steadiness, the perseverance, and integrity of the Scottish character are commendable virtues. But when these traits exhibit themselves in any other interests, they are foibles to be sneered at. And if shown in securing their own or their country's rights and interests, they are propensities to be instantly checked. And those who show them are so many miscreants to be duly punished for daring to think that they are anything else than the lower extremities of the English body politic. And I think that's able to be applied today in the fact that you depend on essential labor, essential workforce, essential occupations. but you don't pay them as if you depend on them. And so the worth and the value is up here, but the payment in the system and respect they are accorded is down here. So I thought, looks like we've been doing this for a while, guys. So I thought that was pretty clear. Oh, Ben is here. Hello, hello. We've got Jim saying this is By Their Cold Fingers by Timothy Bryan. Oh, the book in Greenland. Okay. Interesting. Oh, and Greenland is the location because the monster is from Inuit mythology. That's pretty far. I think of Inuits as from northern Canada. Okay, well, I guess it must be like a language group or familial group, so I'll trust you. And then Elaine says, sounds interesting. I like the mythology part of The Terror by Simmons. Yeah. Cool. Oh, and Jim says it also relates to climate change, Greenland getting colder and even less hospitable in the early 15th century. Oh, so the midi ice age that was created. Neat. And Eloise is here. Hey, happy Wednesday. Nice to see you. Yeah. Exactly. Although take industrial overlord and substitute that. Greenland is next to Canada. Yeah, but you'd have to boat there, right? I mean, it's not, there's no land bridge or anything. So that's why I was like, I don't think of them as sailors. So could be wrong. Could be wrong. All right. So that was the second excerpt, which is good. We've got 124, and this is more a funny reference. So he had this all sewn up. And Ven and Jim, I think, the Brits in the house at the moment. So this is for humor. Englishmen take their own superiority so much for granted that they do not feel the need of asserting it. Scotsmen have their own quiet way of maintaining their own proper level. Highlanders generally are not so intrusive as to think of getting up any demonstrations of their nationality. Irishmen, as a rule, if they do obtrude their nationality, do it very modestly and with a view to gratifying those whom they address. Welshmen, however, and here's where we need to see Gareth, I don't know, or Emma, because she's in Wales, seem to feel themselves bound to assert the riches of their intellectual possessions. And to me, it has always been a decided treat to fall in with the patriotic Cymric, or Welshman. They seem brimful of facts and arguments in support of their own claims. A run through Wales, whether north or south, gives a useful delving to the mind of a Highlander. And I shall never forget the bright examples of rare enthusiasm which I have witnessed in places in which I have had the privilege of meeting with the active-minded Welsh. So I thought that was fun. He did a little tour of his island and said, yeah, everyone's pretty quiet except those Cymric or Cymric, or however you would say it. Maybe Marion can tell me. So yeah, so that's the third one. The first, page 35. Yeah, I'll do this one next. Okay. So at the beginning, I think this is still the introduction. This is for the writers out there, okay? So I said he started out as an excise man and then he went into the newspaper industry and organizing. And the newspaper only lasted 7 years because he couldn't get the money to keep it going. But here's what he said. Murdoch was left to wonder whether his paper had, after all, achieved anything worthwhile. Quote, judged by a banker's balance, which is the world's criterion of success, he conceded, it has not. But if our 8 years' work has resulted in one, only one, of our readers being assisted to raise himself out of do-nothingism, to realize the fact that he is a man, of course, women weren't supposed to read then, born with a purpose in life, then all our 8 years' struggles, our 8 years' sacrifices have not been in vain, and the paper has been a success. And to that I say, indie authors, hear you. So, yeah. Various people with channels of various sizes have mused on their definitions of success. And I thought that was a great definition, changing one person's mindset, giving them the motivation or incentive or confidence to change their own path forward. I thought that was nice. Hopefully, I do that for someone with my historical fiction. And then finally, we've got something that, if you've read any of my books, will call to one of the experiences in one of them. So if you know it, shout it out in the comments. Page 178. He's talking about when he visited the United States and Canada. So he's in Canada. I must mention here that in times past, there were fearful hardships endured by immigrants, striking out into the forest and there cutting their way to a bit of ground in which to sow a few bushels of grain and plant a few potatoes, living somehow until the crops grew. Aye, living a life which is now almost incredible. All this sort of thing has come to an end. This is in like the 1880 time period. And besides that, there are farms to be had in these settled parts of the country. Then there are the vast prairies of Manitoba ready for the plow. And we're skipping over the fact that these were actually stolen lands of First Nations. Excuse me. And everything is being done to facilitate the settlement of that country. There will be no more of those terrible hardships. Indeed, this generation of Canadians has, to a large extent, given up the work of clearing land. You see great patches along the roadside, all the way from Niagara round the head of Lake Ontario and onto Montreal, in which the work of clearing the land has been given up. The young Canadians thinking it too hard work and quite uncalled for, when land free of trees can be had for nothing. Besides this, there is an idea growing up that there has been too much clearing, that there should have been great belts of wood reserved for shelter, for the regulating of the temperature, and for the supply of fuel in the time to come. I mean, should I count this as a Climathon book? I mean, isn't that perfect? So that was my last quote, and I don't know if it reminds anyone of any particular book, but I really enjoyed this, as you can tell. Like, a lot of these are research things, but the ones I shared I thought would be general interest if you were here on my channel. So, and sorry the light keeps popping in. It's a uninvited guest. Let's see. Inuits are nomadic, aren't they? So depending on your definition of nomadic, I think not. I think they were going to and from the same places and knew the land very well. And so I don't know if that's nomadic. I don't know. Inuit are nomadic, says Jim. Okay. Maybe we have a different definition. Elaine says, one thing I did learn the other day watching a news clip. Yes, Greenland has an Inuit population. Okay. We're displaced from a military base, and no, not Canadian. All right, so it split off the population. Interesting. Elaine says, Crozier should have been in charge of expedition. Better leader and just came back from Antarctica, but nope, he was Irish and English said no. Franklin. Is this Canadian history? Because I am not familiar. I'm not sure which expedition you're talking about. But I think the gist is that there was an Irish person who would have been better to lead an expedition to Antarctica. No, not to Antarctica, because he just came back. Discrimination. Yeah. So Elaine is guessing the keening. Not exactly. Not exactly. Oh, and Leslie is here. Leslie would know. She says, I can't stay because I'm at work, sending lots of positivity your way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, friend. Hope you have a good day. And Elaine says, makes sense with climate. Why Bugsby plan here in Canada. Plan to clear even more and build more houses. Yeah. Yeah. Not the way. It's not the way, folks. All right, so that was my research read that could be counted as a climathon book, maybe, who knows? It's not gonna be for anything on Herkyad, I think, and neither is this one, but this is the one I found at a shop down the way in California. And if you watched the last review, I think is where I had the one about arts and crafts and William Morris. And so this was a continuation of the design interest, sort of mid 19th century to late 19th century, a reaction against industrialization and shoddy workmanship and losing craft skills in order to not lose that knowledge, cultural heritage, if you will. And that influenced fashions and trends and styles and whatnot. So here we have a studio I'd never heard of called the Silver Studio, which was run by one man whose last name was Silver, and then later by his two sons, whose last names were also Silver. So this takes us from mid to late 60s. And the main difference between William Morris and the Silvers is that William Morris was very obsessed with quality and authenticity and doing everything himself. Like he learned all of these crafts so that he could learn to do textiles, to do weaving, to do stained glass, to do furniture making. And so if you're having one person do all those things and learn all those skills, their time is going to be very expensive. So the Silvers were more about designing the things and then figuring out a way to machine make them so that the middle class could have similar type styles and not cost an arm and a leg. And they lasted longer because William Morris did not pass his studio on to anyone. His designs have been licensed by subsequent companies, but no one took on like his cooperative. And so he had less staying power. The company itself had less staying power. His ideas definitely had staying power than the Silvers. And there's stuff you can still buy. So this is a book that's about the history, but also this is what you would think about if you were doing this and this and this. And like curtains used to be like this, and this used to be a thing. And so I just found this delightful because it's like slice of life for how people would decorate their homes in 1870, in 1890, in 1920, and these design changes and trends that I had never heard of that that haven't made it to our age. So I thought that was really cool. And you'll get to hear about the haltery behind me at the end because I have two excerpts from this one to share, but a little appreciation for the lovely plant tree, and then we'll talk about the haltery. That's all my mom's work, so thank her for my backdrop today. So this is by Mark Turner and Leslie Hoskins, The Silver Studio, and here's an example of the thing that like a historical fiction writer just is so gleeful about, right? So this is page 40. This is what the book looks like. There's lots of illustrations, not diagrams, illustrations, and I don't know what you want to call it. Some are big, some are little, some are color, some are black and white. A lot of good examples for what they're talking about. Here's the historical tidbit for me. Perhaps one of the greatest difficulties in home decoration, not difficulties, differences in home decoration between the mid and late 19th century lay in attitudes to the furnishing and decoration of the bedroom. In the 1850s and 60s, the purchase of beds and their appropriate bed hangings was probably the biggest single outlay the householder made. Great care was taken in the choice of mattress, be it a wool French one, a more traditional feather bed, or hair. Flock was considered suitable only for servants. Prices varied enormously according to quality, but it was universally agreed that this was not an area to economize. Vast sums were also spent on bed drapery. Four-poster beds, although considered old-fashioned by 1860, were still seen as status symbols, and upholsterers were anxious to encourage this particularly lucrative aspect of their work. Damask was still the preferred choice for bed hangings, lined with a colored and glazed calico. Chintz or dimity was sometimes advocated for summer use. It was also customary to drape dressing tables in pink calico covered with white lace. I mean, that is a detail you can drop into a book and give a real sense of what the room feels like and have it be not anachronistic. The other usual furniture for bedrooms included chests of drawers, wardrobes, and washing stands. Mahogany was the most usual wood, tropical, but in more prosperous households, walnut and satinwood were to be found. The problem of bed bugs in large cities discouraged the use of wallpaper as it provided a refuge for insects. Ugh. For similar reasons, fitted carpets were never recommended for bedrooms. Indeed, bare boards, which could easily be washed, were perfectly admissible. So now you have a new thought when you look at wainscoting in historical homes. It's for the bed bugs. Maybe. It's also for eating in dining rooms because it's easily washed down. So this is just like gold for a historical fiction writer, right? And this is the kind of detail that I was like, this is not something you study. This is not something in major biographies that would be talked about. So I really love when I find a little tidbit like this, and I put a little tab in there so that I can fix it in my mind. When I write, I usually have to give myself a layout, as in like a floor map of what the rooms are that I spend the most time in the fiction, because otherwise I'll keep moving things around and keep wondering, wait, where's the kitchen? Or wait, how many chairs do they have? Or whatever. And so if I do it once and like write it out, then that helps me keep it consistent for the people who actually see things when they read. Because, not everyone does that. Last excerpt here from my history books today is about the hall. So we're talking about hallways and what you can do to break them up and make them look homely, as the British would say, even though in American English, homely is negatively connoted. The narrow passage hallway of most houses had always been rather difficult to deal with satisfactorily. Ideally, it should be both an entrance and a reception area, but lack of space meant that its grand origins in the medieval manor house could only be hinted at. Decorating writers nagged constantly about cutting down on furniture. Make a clean sweep of antlers, spears, assegais, shields, and all other miscellaneous animal relics and weapons of warfare which can never properly be seen, and which make an already small and poky place appear more crowded and more stuffy. But at a time when everyone wore hats and most people carried umbrellas, there's another golden detail. Some sort of provision for these was necessary. The best answer was to provide a separate cloakroom or a hall cupboard, but the more usual solution was a Jacobean stand, which joined the barometer and monk's bench, the back folded down to make a table or chest just inside the front door. So beside me here, I have not a Jacobean stand, but a hall tree, which are not usually made anymore and are spectacularly hard to find, just like a hat rack, because no one wears hats much anymore or carries umbrellas, especially in California. So I just loved that we have a modern, I'll call it modern, even though it's an 100-year-old house, representative of this problem that I was reading about in the book. So, like, I love hearing about how people made these decisions, why they made them, how a house was made comfortable, how people express their individuality or class insecurity. There's just so many great details about society and individuals that I love to think about and digest and take them apart and apply them to some of my characters to show how they're dealing with their world, you know? So, research finds for the win today. Let's see. Okay, so Elaine was talking about the Franklin expedition, lost in the Arctic and all died. Same year as ill-fated Donner Party. Brutal winter, bad food, as canning just new and food bad. Oh, okay, so we didn't have food preservation. For centuries, the Inuit were a nomadic people who spent their time hunting and fishing, but today they have become sedentary. Yeah, the reserves would hurry that trend, even if modernity did not. Okay, so Elaine just found Erebus and the Terror, the two ships, a few years ago. Amazing video on Canadian website found based on Inuit stories, and they may have seen Crozier briefly. Oh, two ships pass in the night kind of thing. Sounds like an interesting read. I used to have plants in the house, but Tiki eats everything, so no indoor plants. Yeah. This is the front room, and Bean has chosen to seclude himself upstairs, probably to stay away from the two little yappy dogs. But he has come down here once when I was working here and the door to the rest of the house was closed. He wasn't too impressed. So I don't think the plants are in any danger, or he is in danger. Great idea to have a floor plan. Yes. I also do it with like an area where people are constantly going back and forth because I forget, did I place that to the northeast or the southwest or what street was it on? So I'll sometimes make a regional map as well. Jacobean? Am I supposed to say Jacobean? Jacobine? I don't know. You know why? Oh my gosh, I think I know why. Because I grew up listening to an advertisement for, I'll write it in here, a law firm, probably to do like accident lawsuits or something, called Jacoby and Myers. And Jacobian stuck in my head. That's hilarious. Wow. You know how you get jingles stuck in your head at a very young age, like the cartoons you watched or whatnot? That happens with advertisements, as well as jingles for me. And yeah, okay. Well, tell me if it should be Jacobean, and I will try to remember that from now on. Thank you, Jim. Being not a friend of the little dogs. Well, no, they have no training or sense of animals outside of their own little world. Oh, you're gonna test my IPA here. Jacobean. All the advertising jingles. That's so funny though, because I immediately knew like the auditory learning it's like imprinted in there. So that's what's in my head. And when I saw something that looked like it fit, I was like, oh, that must be it. Jim's like, no, Jacobean. Okay, thank you. All right, so the last piece today is any announcements. Has anyone got anything fun coming up? So I don't have anything going on Friday. I am doing business things. I am doing tax things, and they're all very, very boring. So I will see you next on Sunday for either an author update or it's not a tag. So I'm going to do a tag for my birthday. Author and we did readathon last Sunday. So probably an author update. But yeah, let me know. I think everyone in here should be wrenched if you want to do links. So let's see. Tax things. How droll. Yeah. We are nearing the finish line on the family business. And so I am starting mine and they go much faster. So Elaine says that's why commercials work. The jingles, so many, I remember. Yeah. Yeah. They got us. They definitely got us. Elaine says, I'm working on my ACOTAR video notes to get ready to film. Awesome. And Ben's Corner says, I have my next author interview with Rex Burke going up on Tuesday. That's right. I think you were just collecting questions and you had the interview. So now you're ready to put it up. That sounds fun. My birthday is Easter this year. So it's Sunday and my normal streaming day is Sunday. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to try to find a birthday tag or two. And if not, maybe I'll make one up because, Kat just made up a belly dancing tag with books to go with prompts. And I thought it was marvelous. So if you haven't seen the belly dancing tag and are curious, she made a really fun video. Oh, Jim was pointing out The Great Gatsby and one other book, I think, in a recent post, the 100th anniversary of publication. I think that just went into not trademark, free copyright. That's the word I'm looking for. Did they get us though? Because I don't actually use J.G. Wentworth or Empire Flooring. But you know the number. You know the number for Empire Flooring. That's fun. Thank you. Yeah, I do feel my age. Yep. Every time I look and I go, oh, I'm not blending in those little silver bits anymore. Okay. Yeah, Elaine says, saw it. Super fun video, but my hips are not going to move like that. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. We might, I think Dave's just going to avail himself of the AI option like he did with the olive animation, but it'll be a fun one. It'll be a fun one to comment on for sure. All right. So I think we've got our updates and our current events to come and our current reading and the two great history books. So that is my Wednesday wrap up for you all today. And go forth and enjoy some beautiful weather. At least here, it's going to be up to 80 today. And so I'm going to be hiding out. Yeah, try 61. It's not for the weak, Elaine. It's not for the weak. You're doing well. Oh, okay. So you had Kafka's The Trial. Oh, no, you had two Kafka books, or someone else had two Kafka books up. So The Trial and Great Gatsby. Nice. 1925. 100 years. It goes by fast, everybody. It goes by fast. So thanks for watching. Get out there and enjoy the world. And don't forget to enjoy and diversify that reading shelf. So take care, everyone, and see you again soon.